South Africa is in a tight spot, with the US threatening heavy tariffs on our exports. Thanks to Donald Trump's latest trade pressure, the government is rushing to make a deal, but in trying to avoid these tariffs, it seems like we might be giving up more than we realize. One of the biggest concerns, a quiet agreement that could let the US send chicken into South Africa without proper safety checks. Let's break this down. Trump's administration recently gave South Africa a 90-day grace period to avoid harsh tariffs, 31% on key exports like wine, sugar, and citrus. That deadline is coming up fast. And because our economy is already struggling, the government is desperate to avoid any more damage. So they've been Saturn to inu Saturn. Frien Wizal, Saturn to inu Saturn to inu Saturn. That's a pretty big they're saying to inu Saturn. They strike a new trade deal. Now here's where things get worrying. As part of this effort, South Africa has reportedly agreed to let US poultry producers declare themselves safe from bird flu and other diseases without our own authorities double-checking. It's something called the self-impose and self-lift rule. Basically, if a US state had a bird flu outbreak in the past, that state can now decide on its own when it's healthy enough to start exporting chicken again. And South Africa is expected to just accept it. This is a huge shift from what used to happen. Before, South Africa's Department of Agriculture had the final say on whether or not imported meat was safe. If there was an outbreak in the US, we could ban chicken from that area. Now that power is being handed over to the Americans. The South African Poultry Association isn't happy. Isaac Breitenbach, one of its leaders, called it a conflict of interest. And he's right. Why should US exporters get to police themselves? That's like letting a student grade their own test. But this isn't just a technical issue. It's about the food we eat. If we allow potentially contaminated meat into the country without proper inspection, we're putting millions of people at risk. South Africa already struggles with food insecurity. Most people can't afford to be picky at the grocery store. And if cheap, potentially unhealthy US chicken floods the market, it will end up in school meals, low-income homes, and street food without anyone realizing the danger. It's also a slippery slope. If the government is willing to give up food safety rules just to avoid US tariffs, what else will they sacrifice next time? Worker protections, health standards, environmental rules. South Africa has every right to trade with the US, but not at the cost of public health and sovereignty. We should be able to say no when something poses a risk to our people. That's how every responsible country operates. Instead, we're now in a position where a foreign country is deciding what food ends up on our plates. And the worst part, most South Africans haven't even heard about this deal. It wasn't announced with a big press conference. It wasn't debated in Parliament. It was slipped through quietly while the public focused on other headlines. This isn't just about chicken, it's about trust. If the government is making these kinds of deals behind closed doors, who's really benefiting? In conclusion, the South African government needs to stop acting out of desperation. Yes, we want to avoid Trump's tariffs, but not by putting our own people at risk. We need trade deals that protect both our economy and our health. And if that means saying no to unsafe chicken, then that's exactly what we should do.